Prostitution refers to the act of engaging in sexual activities with others in exchange for money or goods. It is an illegal form of sexual transaction that is based on monetary exchange because it is a violation of public order, good customs, and social morality. In China, prostitution is considered illegal, and the legal consequences, both direct and indirect, can be significant. According to Article 66 of the Public Security Administration Punishment Law, individuals involved in prostitution may be subject to detention for a period of more than 10 days but less than 15 days, and may also be fined up to 5,000 yuan. In less severe cases, the detention period may be up to 5 days or a fine of up to 500 yuan may be imposed. If solicitation for prostitution occurs in public places, the punishment may be up to 5 days of detention or a fine of up to 500 yuan. After taking power in 1949, the Chinese Communist Party embarked upon a series of campaigns with the aim of eradicating prostitution from mainland China by the early 1960s. Since the loosening of government controls over society in the early 1980s, prostitution in mainland China not only has become more visible, but can now be found throughout both urban and rural areas. In spite of government efforts, prostitution has now developed to the extent that it comprises an industry, one that involves a great number of people and produces a considerable economic output. Prostitution has also become associated with a number of issues, including organized crime, government corruption, hypocrisy, as well as sexually transmitted diseases. Notably, a CCP official who was a major provincial campaigner against corruption was removed from his post and expelled from the party after he was caught in a hotel room with a prostitute in 2007. The People's Republic of China rejects the argument that prostitution is an unremarkable transaction between consenting individuals and that prohibition laws constitute a violation of civil liberties. Overall, the PRC's legal response to prostitution is to penalize third-party organizers of prostitution. Participants in the prostitution transaction are still usually penalized according to the Chinese system of administrative sanctions, rather than through the criminal code. Until the 1980s, the subject of prostitution was not viewed as a major concern for the National People's Congress. The PRC's first criminal code, the Criminal Law and the Criminal Procedure Law of 1979, made no explicit reference to the activities of prostitutes and prostitute clients. Legal control of prostitution was effected on the basis of provincial rulings and localized policing initiatives until the introduction of the Security Administration Punishment Regulations in 1987. The regulations makes it an offense to sell sex and to have illicit relations with prostitutes. Godmother of prostitution's Wang Ziqi, the madam of the Bright Spot Tea House in Chongqing's grimy Yuzhong district. Miss Wang, who ran the brothel with her sister, Wang Wanning, was also reputed to be the mistress of Wen Qiang, the 55-year-old deputy police commissioner and Justice Bureau chief who was secretly also one of the city's most powerful mafia godfathers. Wang Ziqi reportedly lured the women to work at beauty salons, tea houses or hotels in Chongqing, before forcing them into prostitution. Wang's trial heard that she and her sister, Wang Wanning, held the women against their will after stealing their identity cards and confiscating their property during their enforced captivity, in which the women were often bitten or made to endure long periods of isolation. Some of the victims went insane or died. A Chinese court heard that more than 300 women had been victims of the Wang sisters between 1994 and 2009, with 7 dying in mysterious circumstances. The women were bitten if they refused to work and their earnings and identity cards were stolen. Some of her victims allegedly went insane after being made to endure long periods of solitary confinement. The gang also arranged for people to teach the women the skills of prostitution. She was pictured along with associate Gu Mingtao, dressed in thickly padded pajamas, their hands cuffed, in court as their death sentences were upheld. In 2003, one of her victims was left paralyzed after jumping from an 8th-floor window at the tea house. Miss Wang was arrested after an enormous crackdown on organized crime in Chongqing in 2009, when 25,000 policemen were charged with cleaning up one of China's most corrupt cities. Nearly 3,000 other gang members were also rounded up, as Bo Xilei, the city's Communist Party secretary, attempted to purge the city of a mafia network that stretched up to the very highest levels of officialdom. Miss Wang was sentenced to death in 2010 after being convicted of organizing and leading a criminal organization. However, she appealed the verdict and earned herself a temporary stay of execution. A psychiatrist said her behavior was the result of being locked up and terrified for a long time. Wang Wang fled the country after her sister's arrest, but was caught and extradited back to China in April 2010. Wang Ziqi had appealed against her conviction, but was rejected and executed on December 8, 2011. Hours before she was executed, Wang Ziqi was allowed briefly to meet two siblings and two cousins who traveled to South China's Jiangxi province. She was led to a courtroom, where the sentence was read and she was taken to the death chamber in Luzhu, 2 hours from the prison, where she was given a lethal injection. Wang Ziqi was 35 years old at the time of her execution. Wang's punishment was part of a major crackdown against corruption and organized crime in Chongqing, a major metropolis in southwest China. Thank you for watching Death Row.